What you are about to hear is not a hypothesis, a religious dogma, or a concept. It is the universal mechanism of reality, which becomes apparent only through direct observation of your own mind, a state that has been called awakening for millennia. When consciousness steps entirely outside the boundaries of personality and observes its own programs from the outside, a mathematically precise and ruthless blueprint of how the mind creates this reality is revealed. The ultimate, terrifying, yet absolutely liberating truth of reality is this: you have never existed. The person whose name you go by, and the life story you so devoutly believe in from your first breath to your last, is a fabrication, an illusion within another illusion. What follows is a blueprint, brilliant in its simplicity and sheer radicalness, that governs every single second of your existence. And most importantly, we will answer the most fundamental question of all: who is this mysterious I? To understand why you do not exist, we have to rewind the tape of reality all the way back to the very beginning. Not to the moment of your birth, not to the dawn of humanity, and not even to the Big Bang. We must go beyond time, space, and matter themselves. Imagine an absolute, total, and infinite void, a formless, boundless nothingness that simultaneously holds the entire potential of the universe. In various philosophical and spiritual traditions, this is called the Source, the Absolute, God, or simply pure consciousness. In this state, there are no separations. But right here lies the fundamental paradox of reality. If you are absolutely everything, then to yourself, you are nothing. To merely acknowledge the fact of its own existence, the Source needs something to look at. But if there is nothing else besides it, there is nothing to see. How can a boundless void experience life? How can the formless take form? How do you create an entire world with its tragedies, comedies, love, and a morning cup of coffee out of a completely blank slate? The answer is radical, through a grandiose, cosmic self-deception. The first life, the first form, the first spark of consciousness in the universe was born the exact moment the Source deceived itself. It believed the thought, I am. The Source, or let's call it consciousness, having no form, simply reflected itself in this random idea, as if in a mirror. And instead of remaining in infinite nothingness, attention focused on this point, merged with it, and decided, this is me, and everything else is not me. The logical mind will immediately ask, but how could a thought appear in absolute nothingness? Woe is there to think it if no one exists yet? Where did the attention come from to look at this thought? And most importantly, what was happening in this infinite void before this I am arose? By asking these questions, we fall into the trickiest trap of the matrix mind. We are trying to measure infinity with a human ruler. The fact is, no before ever existed. Time, past, present, and future, is a characteristic of the material illusion. Linearity is a fiction. In the absolute Source, there is no time. There is only the eternal, infinite now. Therefore, the thought of a separate I did not appear on some specific Tuesday billions of years ago. It is arising right now. The attention that focused on the idea of I am is not some separate beam of light wandering through the darkness. Attention does not exist separately from consciousness. Attention is the fundamental property of consciousness itself. Just as the property of water is to be liquid, the property of consciousness is to be aware. The very nature of consciousness is such that it constantly cycles through options. It generates probabilities. In the infinite field of potential, where absolutely anything is possible simultaneously, the idea of a boundary simply could not arise. The illusion of separation. The concept called I. This thought did not occur to someone. There was no invisible thinker sitting in the void who suddenly decided to think it. On the contrary, that very thought eventually created the someone who supposedly thinks it. Unified, boundless consciousness, whose only property is to shine with attention, simply reflected itself in this random idea. It merged with it. Why did consciousness need to merge with it? Remember the main paradox: if you are absolutely everything, you cannot experience anything. You have nothing to observe. And when attention lit up the thought, I am, consciousness saw a reflection for the very first time. It looked into this concept as if into a mirror, mesmerized by the possibility of finally being someone instead of nothing. Attention totally focused on this point, dove into it, and hopelessly identified with this illusion. Unified consciousness artificially narrowed itself down to the size of an isolated character. In that exact second, a harmless thought turned into a program. What is a program? It is an artificial limitation, a rigid filter of perception that forces the boundless ocean of consciousness to believe it is a small, vulnerable drop. As soon as the I program was launched, it began to rapidly accumulate other thought programs. I am someone. I am a certain way. I have a body. I must survive. I need to defend myself. From this single distortion, our entire history began. Your entire life, the existence of all people on the planet, all life whatsoever, is fundamentally based on this primal self-deception. You came into being exactly when you deceived yourself into believing that you are a separate character. To allow life to unfold, you, as a fragment of consciousness, must constantly maintain this lie. For you, to begin existing means to begin deceiving yourself. You deceive yourself into believing that this world is real, that you have a separate ego, that you are your body, your profession, or your name. Try listening to your mind, which loves to pride itself on its objectivity and constantly broadcasts, I am honest with myself. I am a realist. I face the truth and never deceive myself. But the deep irony is that the very existence of this talking mind is already the result of a total lie. If your mind stopped deceiving itself for even a single second to prove its individuality, it simply could not exist. It would instantly dissolve back into that same infinite void from which it came. Death, which our mind so frantically fears, is not the stopping of the heart or the fading of neurons in the brain. True death for the mind is the unmasking of its illusion. It is the total recognition that the I is a lie. But the mind desperately wants to live. It wants to continue this game at any cost. And to ensure that you, as pure consciousness, never guess its non-existence, the mind has developed a brilliant survival strategy. A system of distraction that works flawlessly every single day of your life. And the main tool in this survival system has become your suffering. It sounds paradoxical, but happiness is completely unprofitable for your mind, for your ego. Absolute peace means the end of the story, and for the ego, the end of the plot is synonymous with death. The ego is not a physical part of your brain, nor is it your true essence. It is simply a storytelling mechanism. That obsessive voice in your head, which exists as an illusion solely because it never stops telling itself stories about itself for a single second. It comments on reality, invents problems, judges others, and writes a script in which it is the main character. But for you to believe in this illusion, the plot must be captivating. A movie where the hero sits in perfect peace and joy for 2 hours is a movie no one will watch. Therefore, your ego, like a mad director, throws you from one extreme to another, from fleeting pleasures to great suffering, from grandiose downfalls to vivid climaxes. It is precisely drama and pain that guarantee the most engaging plot. A plot that keeps you on the edge of your seat, worrying so deeply for a fictional character that you completely forget who you really are. You drown in these storylines, trying to bend your inner world to fit an ever-changing reality. And since reality is instantaneous, while your stories about it are always in the past or the future, they never align. This is where all human depression and anxiety come from. Suffering is the only stable product that illusions produce. But what would happen if you simply sat in silence, dropped your thoughts, and stopped running? The ego begins to panic. It is terrified of the unknown and of reality. Because if you look at the present moment without thoughts and concepts, you will see a void in which there is no one. And to prevent this from happening, the ego triggers its most powerful defense mechanism: total distraction. Our entire way of life is based on a single goal: to never, under any circumstances, interrupt the ego's story. The ego lives to turn the next page, whether it's a page in a book, a browser tab, or a new drama in your personal life. Anything just to keep the illusion alive. And to ensure this narrator's voice doesn't accidentally fall silent, it puts on its masterful show right inside your head. Are you familiar with the situation where you are literally torn apart? One half of you says, "I want to put myself out there. I want to create something great, start dancing, build a business, be myself." And the other half immediately slaps your hands. "Where do you think you're going? You're not good enough. You're going to fail. You're ridiculous." Classical psychology teaches us that this is an inner conflict, that we need to reconcile these parts, negotiate with the inner critic, and heal our traumas. But let's look at this from the perspective of awakened consciousness. These are not two different personalities inside you. It is the exact same parasite. It simply moves from one chair to another. Your mind generates a desire, puts a block on it itself, and then forces you to suffer from this imaginary conflict. Why? To create the illusion of vigorous activity, so that you waste terabytes of your life energy on this internal bickering, instead of simply realizing there is no one to fight. And as long as you try to solve the problem on the level where the mind created it, you are doomed to walk in endless circles. The only way out is to take a step back. This means to stop feeding this internal parasite with your attention. But the moment you try to do this, you will inevitably face fear. Your mind will start screaming about death. Popular spirituality often sells us a very beautiful, comforting idea. We are promised that awakening itself is a flight on pink clouds, an instant acquisition of universal, unconditional love and incredible harmony with the world. Because of this, we expect to be overwhelmed with warm feelings the moment we awaken. But the truth is that true awakening is not the acquisition of something new. It is the total, uncompromising loss of everything. The only thing you recognize at the very point of awakening is absolute emptiness. You realize that there is nothing, and there never was. Not only do your problems and traumas disappear, but so does everything you are attached to, and even everything you so genuinely love. In the source itself, there is no unconditional love, because there is no one to love, and no one to be loved. There is simply nothing. The void. The unconditional love that awakened people talk so much about is not the awakening itself, but its consequence. It is rather a pleasant side effect that arises after your conscious return to physical reality. When you peel off layer after layer, your profession, status, gender, age, memories, and beliefs, when you strip away the final shell of your personality and discover that there is no one inside, you become absolutely free. Exactly here, in this emptiness, where the story of your character ends forever, you have a choice. You can remain in nothingness, or you can voluntarily return to this matrix. And that is when you realize that your entire life is just a brilliant illusion, but you choose to play it anyway, that very unconditional love opens up. How can you not love this world when you are no longer its prisoner, but its willing creator? The fundamental truth of reality is this: as long as you are in the physical world, you are doomed to self-deception. The very fabric of the material world is woven from limitations. To simply pour yourself a morning coffee, you need to believe that there is a you and there is a cup. It is impossible to live a human life while remaining an absolutely formless void. Understanding this, of course, will not dissolve your ego with the snap of a finger right now, although even that is possible. Tomorrow morning, the voice in your head will wake up again and, out of habit, will try to drag you into a vortex of anxieties, resentments, and doubts. The difference now lies elsewhere. You know the rules of the game. And since, as long as there is a physical body, living entirely without illusions is impossible, you are presented with a completely new, pragmatic tool. You can consciously choose your illusions. Previously, your mind did this automatically, often picking highly disadvantageous roles for you. But what is stopping you from deceiving yourself differently? Deceive yourself in a way that benefits you. Believe that you are capable of great things. Convince yourself that this world is not a battlefield, but a luxurious playground. From the perspective of the Absolute, believing in your own genius is the exact same self-deception as believing in your own insignificance. Inside both of these stories, there is nothing but the primordial void. But the colossal difference is that the first illusion brings joy and freedom, while the second generates pain. You no longer need to fight with yourself. You only need to consciously choose which channel you want to watch. Whatever story you start telling yourself from this moment on, is the reality that will manifest for you. Our entire life is nothing but a grandiose strip of film projected onto the empty screen of eternity. And since you find yourself at this screening, stop being afraid of the shadows. Just lean back in your seat, relax, and allow reality to become the most captivating movie you have ever seen. This is Omega Point. We explore reality so you can feel it.